Put down your baby and pick up a beer. Dad Jokes is back with a brand new episode. I'm Jerry, joined here by Brandon, and you're listening to the podcast of two dads going through the journey of fatherhood while you all get to listen to us do it. And Brandon, we've spent some time recently together over the holiday weekend. It was just the 4th of July weekend, which is always a great time of the year. And, it's been busy for us, and I think busy for you too. But before we get into all of that, let's start off with a dad joke. And I want you to kick us off today. Give me a dad joke to start us off, Brandon.
So part of me thinks that you've said this joke before. So I got kind of a backup, but we're going to see.
Okay.
Well, why did the husband bring plants home for the bathroom?
I did not say this joke.
Okay.
I don't know.
So do you have a guess?
I
Well, it's
don't
because his wife asked for toiletries.
know. Oh, that's
Toiletries.
Okay. It's not bad.
Yeah.
That's not bad. I like it. Mine's pretty good today. So I'll go more into that story later.
If I feel like yours is better than that, I'm going to go with my secret weapon.
Okay, that's fair. I only have one today, so that's not bad, Brandon. But yeah, I kind of alluded to it. This obviously we're coming off the 4th of July weekend, which is always fun. Today was our first day back to work, which I saw something online today that I thought was very, very true. It said today is the Mondayest Wednesday of all time, and I was like, that's very true. It felt like a Monday.
I said that out loud today.
Did you? Yeah, it felt like a Monday. It was a long day at work, but it was a good time off, and we kind of got to do a lot during our time off. What'd you guys do during your time off?
Well, it was fun. I know I say this each and every week, but I feel like every weekend when I really get time to hang out with Bryce, it is like he's just showing me something new. So we had a good time. We hung out a ton between Saturday through yesterday, Tuesday, and part of that was time spent with all of us getting together. So he's never been in a pool before. So he starts swim lessons, and spoiler alert, not spoiler alert, you're going to see the title of this episode, but we're talking about swimming and kind of some strategies to swimming, teaching your child how to swim today. But I hadn't done any research on that. We kind of decided that we were going to make that a topic pretty recently, and so Kelsey and I'm just thinking like he loves the bath. He's going to hop in here and be great. That kid was, I would almost say he was scared to a degree when we first got in the pool. Like he was unsure. It probably didn't help that in this environment there's a ton of people around laughing, like having a great time. There's kids jumping off of like inflatable diving boards and slides. But he was definitely iffy. It's always kind of a good feeling when your kids are like, he does it at the doctor's office sometimes, but they get afraid, and then you're their safe place. So he's like gripping my neck and hugging me tight. So it's kind of a bittersweet moment, but he warmed up to the pool. We put him, instead of Kelsey and I holding him the entire time, we put him on one of the steps leading into the pool. He was able to walk around, kind of do his thing, and end up having a good time. And then one thing that I've noticed the last couple of times you and I have hung out is how he and Peyton play with each other is actually like it's super cute, and it's fun to see because he doesn't get around other like kids his age other than Peyton as much as I would like, and so you always kind of had that in the back of your head, as we mentioned before, like how would he do? But I mean, they play great together. And yesterday was super cute and funny, just how they were interacting with each other. They were like playing with each other's hair, making each other laugh, and they had a good like probably 45-minute stretch where they were just keeping each other entertained the entire time.
And they were on the same page. Sometimes when they play, it's like they're playing different games, but together, they were playing like the same. They were both like knew what each other were doing. That's what was kind of funny, because it was like, okay, they're actually like they were playing like hide and seek, and then like you said, they were kind of playing like where they were like messing with each other's hair, or like I don't know what it was with the wall, but like the wall was the safe place. They kept backing up against the wall, like and like laughing at each other. Like it was super cute, but it was cool. Like I said, just seeing them almost like playing the same game, like they were communicating without communicating because they weren't really talking to each other, but they both knew what
They
each
were
other
saying
were
something
doing.
to each other, and they understood it. I feel like
They got the game.
Dude, I need to go back and watch that movie, Baby Geniuses. It's just like, have you ever seen that movie?
I don't think so.
It's an interesting movie to watch, but it's basically like it's almost like a crime heist type movie, but the stars of the show are like 2-year-olds, and the premise is that like kids are like absolute geniuses before they like cross over and start speaking like in human language, but they can completely understand what each other is saying. These kids are like secret agents. It was like it's a kid movie, but it's something that I might watch that this week now. Just
I might have to.
it up. But that was kind of the thought. I'm sitting there watching them like they absolutely know what each other's saying. And then randomly, so one thing that spoiler alert may come up later is that swimming is considered pretty good for kids if you have it done around their nap time, because they're known to take longer naps or sleep a little bit better through like the energy they exert. That did not happen for Bryce yesterday. This dude woke up and it was nuts. Like Kelsey was up with him for like an hour. I stayed up with him. I was up for like another hour. It took forever for him to fall asleep, and he was irritated. I think he was scratching his head. Obviously, we have an appointment with the allergist. So we're trying to get that under control, but it had been almost a week since he had an incident like that, and it seemed like something between the pool and his bath and whatever.
Yeah, the chlorine did something or something like that. Yeah,
that's what we were wondering. But I mean, he got straight in the bath as soon as we came home, and you'd think that was good enough. But that was pretty much our week. It was eventful and uneventful at the same time. These weeks are becoming very similar, where I'm almost learning more about him each and every week. I feel like we're really starting to get that dad and son bond going.
Yeah, no, I like you said, it was eventful. Ours was definitely eventful too. We got to pack a lot into a short amount of time, and it was kind of our first times going out with two, which, I'll kind of go more into that, but that's been, we're finding our footing, I guess, the best way to put that. But we went to my dad's the one day, the Saturday, which he has a big party on the lake. We went to that, and the baby did pretty well. Peyton was kind of up and down. She didn't take a nap because she struggles to nap outside the house, and Macy tried to put her down at my dad's house. It didn't go over super well. And then we had some friends over our house that she did pretty well with, and we went to the pool party you guys went to, and I think Peyton lately, she's kind of, since the baby's come home, I've mentioned this, she's been extra emotional. Like, she's definitely still a lot of fun, but when she gets upset, it's just like she is like a whole nother level. Like, it's hard to console her. And she's had a lot of that. She definitely got upset at the pool. She was really upset a couple times. And then she got really upset today a few times. Today was so bad that when I got home, it was weird. She was like, it was almost like she seemed like she was in pain today, which she didn't have a fever or nothing. So me and Macy were both kind of confused. We don't know if something's bothering her. Maybe she's got a tooth coming in. We can't tell. Or she's got something else, like stomach issues or something going on, because she seems like something's wrong. Like, she doesn't seem comfortable almost. But, I don't know, like, if the emotional stuff is anything related to, just the baby being around, or if it's just kind of the stage she's at. Maybe she's learning a lot, going through almost like a leap that's not classified as a leap. But she's definitely got some highs and lows. But it is funny because you said something to me when we were hanging out. You were like, I think, what was the stat, Brandon? You said that kids don't understand the word no until like 2.5.
2.5 to 3.5 is the...
And it's funny because, like, it kind of hit home with me. I was thinking about this just last night, but, Peyton's been having these tantrums lately, and I try, you try to almost talk to them or, like, be like, hey, what's going on? But they don't really understand what you're saying. So you try to tell them no or not to do something, but apparently they don't understand that either. But you also don't want to just give in because, like, now she's at the point where normally when she throws a tantrum, I know why. But the problem is sometimes she's throwing a tantrum about something that you can't give in, even if you wanted to. Like, right? They want something that's dangerous. Or like yesterday, she wanted a toy that someone else was playing with. And I'm not going to take a toy from another kid. One, because it's not good for her, but two, you're not going to do that, right? So, like, it's like, no. but you can't reason with them at this age. They don't understand the no. So it's kind of trying to figure out how to do that. And it's frustrating, but it's also interesting. Like, what do you do? Cause like you go back to the other things we talked about. Do you distract them? Well, she knows what she wants. And it's like, she's like, I don't want these other toys. I don't want these other things that normally work. Do you try to switch things up? Well, it's hard because Macy's got the baby, right? So it's not like, okay, maybe mom can get her out of her funk. So, we're trying to find our footing with that, especially because, like I said, right now Peyton seems to be having more tantrums or more intense tantrums than she's had in the past. But that whole they don't understand no to 2.5. I was like, oh, that's great, because she's 19 months, so we still got time with that.
They say that they understand tone.
Yeah.
So that's why, from like a parental standpoint, it seems like it works sometimes, but the actual understanding of it takes a little bit longer.
Yeah. And then some of the other things is, I think anyone out there who's maybe got another baby on the way, baby number 2, or already has 2, you'll kind of appreciate this. But like I said, we're trying to find our footing with 2, and it's definitely a work in progress. But it's just interesting because, like, we were out yesterday, and Peyton was kind of throwing a hissy fit, and she was upset, and Macy was inside with the baby, but I don't know what she's doing with the baby. Is she feeding the baby? Maybe. Is the baby going crazy? Maybe. Is the baby being an angel and she's just holding her? Maybe. I don't know. I just know my kid's that I got on my lap is being crazy. And so, you're like, okay, what's going on? But she's probably could be thinking the same thing. Like, the baby's crying, but dad's out there playing in the pool with the baby. So, it's hard because in the past, if you have one kid, and let's say Peyton's being crazy, like I said, you might be able to get mom to calm her down. Or even if mom doesn't calm her down, you give yourself 5 minutes where you deal with her for 5-10 minutes. I'm going to go chill out. And then you relax. Then you come take her. Well, you don't have that so much now because there's 2 kids and you're both dealing with them. So even best case scenario, you're flipping kids. And that's hard because Peyton's 19 months. You can't let her run by herself, and especially by a pool. So you got to constantly be around her. She's running around. She's being crazy. And then the baby's, at an age where you got to constantly be with her too. So it's hard because you don't get a break really at all for any reason, or even just to switch it up. So it's just different, not necessarily bad. It's just different because, like I said, I got even trying to eat. I was trying to grab things with my left hand.
You were a champ yesterday eating. You had 2 plates in front of you.
I was trying. Yeah, you got to find
one
a
was
rhythm.
Peyton's plate. But she wanted everything from your plate, even though her plate had everything that your plate had on it.
Correct. Yeah, and then she wanted to, so it's interesting. But it was good. But kind of like to sum all this up too, Brandon, it's funny because the day, what we were able to do the other night is Peyton was being kind of crazy during the day, and my in-laws were like, hey, we're off. We can come and, watch the baby for a little bit if you guys want to just hang out and with Peyton, or if you guys want to do, and I was like, hey, do you guys mind watching the baby and Peyton, and me and Macy will go grab dinner? Which when we had Peyton, we didn't go out for a couple months or whatever, you know what I mean? And the baby now is over 3 weeks old, but I'm like, you know what? I just, cause before the pregnancy, Macy had a hard pregnancy, right? And then the week we were in the hospital was tough. And then we've been home with 2 kids, and Peyton's been really emotional. So it's been a lot, and she hasn't really gotten out. I go to work, so I got a little bit, where I'm away from it, at least at that. But I'm like, I think that maybe just getting out of the house could be good for her. But also, and I said this before, I work a lot. So like having a little bit of time where you can just be husband and wife and kind of be able to eat, and you probably spend 90% of the time talking about the kids anyway, but you're away from the house and in that setting, and you can just kind of get back to yourselves, can be huge. And so our in-laws were gracious enough to watch the kids, and we went out to dinner. We were gone, literally, we left at 6 o'clock, and we're back before to put them in bed and everything. So it wasn't very long at all. But it was really good. I think it was good for us. It was important. We got out, kind of relaxed. It kind of recharges your batteries. And I can't stress this enough. Everyone's different, but find a way to be able to connect with your spouse is huge. Especially, like I said, now with 2 kids, it's even harder for us to have time, because before, you put Peyton down, you might have that last hour and a half, 2 hours before you go to bed where you can watch a show or talk or hang out, read books next to each other, whatever it is. But now, you put Peyton to sleep and you have the baby, and you're taking care of the baby, and the baby's in the room too. So the baby's never away. And then if the baby does go to sleep right away, you want to go to sleep because you don't know how much you're going to be able to get. So you don't have a lot of time with just each other. So finding those moments is huge. So anyone out there, like I said, I mean, I get it. You want to be by your kids 24/7, but sometimes it's good to find a way to be able to have those moments. So that was good for us. So we did do that. That was nice.
What did you eat? What was the dinner choice for the first time getting away?
You'll appreciate this, Brandon. So we were talking, and I was like, Macy, pick whatever you want. I'm like, I'm not picky. Let's do something. You haven't been out in a while. What do you want? So she picked a Mexican restaurant that we hadn't been to in a while, and we were both excited about. So it was actually, I mean, Brandon, you'll know this place, Honcho's in Clarkson, right?
Oh.
Right? I didn't think you were expecting that.
I thought you went to the one in town, and I was
nope,
going to say it's overrated.
Well, we picked Honcho's. I'm like, let's go down there. We haven't been there in a minute. We walk up, and the lady's like, oh, it's going to be a 45-minute wait. And I'm like, well, put our name down. We'll decide. And she goes, okay. She goes, and I told you an hour and 15, an hour and a half, right? Like 10 seconds ago it was 45 minutes. Now you're saying, I'm like, okay. So we walked down the street.
What a jerk.
I know. I was like, what? So we walked down the street and we went to the wood shop instead, which is one of our favorite places. It's a barbecue place.
It's a better choice anyway.
I love the wood shop. We just haven't been to there in a while, but we walked in. I got a margarita there anyways. And then we had really good barbecue, pulled pork, some brisket. We shared some kind of shared a meal, type of thing where we got a couple different meats, a couple different sides. Oh, they had some killer red beans and rice, which is weird. Like I'd never seen it there before we got it. It was amazing. But anyways, it was great. It was great. It was, like I said, it was just nice to kind of have like a little bit of a date night. We still got back. We were able to put the kids down, read stories. So like I said, they probably didn't even notice we were gone, but I was
fully prepared
nice.
to give you a little crap about what you ate. Cause I thought for sure it was going to be the local Mexican restaurant.
Nope, it wasn't.
City, but
the local restaurant in our city was where we went on our first date. So I can't give that place crap because it's just sentimental value, but I actually don't necessarily disagree with your point. But still, it's got sentimental value for us.
Yeah.
But yeah, other than that, Brandon, like I said, we were busy. It was great. It's crazy to think that in less than a week now, I will have a 1-month-old, which is just nuts. Yep, 6 days.
But you can really tell, like her face is filling out, cheeks are coming in, like you can. I'm seeing a lot of resemblance to Peyton.
Yeah, and knock on wood, she's
just
been
maybe Peyton like 3 months later.
She's been pretty good. Like I said, she's still fussy, and tends to be cranky when she's awake, but she sleeps fairly well. She's had a couple nights where she's only woken up once, which has just been great. And honestly, knock on wood, more good nights than bad nights, and even her bad nights aren't too awful so far. So we'll take it. She's been good, but it is funny how it goes.
That's the thing with second babies, because we have a couple other friends who we were around yesterday who both had. I mean, there were 3, like basically 1 month or less year olds at this pool party we were at yesterday, and every single one of them said, from a sleeping perspective and temperament, that the newborn has been, if they're comparing it to their older sibling, better.
Well, I think there's a couple things.
Sometimes that first month is a little bit of fool's gold.
Yeah, there can be a little bit of that, but I think also too there's a couple things working in our favor. One, she was a big baby, and they say big babies sleep better, so that's one thing. 2, Peyton was so bad that anything would look good to us. So I think there's some of that where like it's like even if she was like normal, cases, yeah, I could say like so she looks good in that regards too. And then I also think there is a little bit of your parent, you're probably a different type of parent. Like I said, I think with Peyton, we literally never wanted to put her down to the point where she got so used to it that it hurt us, right? Where I think now we were more conscious of that. And, I also think that with Peyton, it was like kind of COVID time where we were inside a lot and we were all holding her. It was winter. Now you're out and I don't know. I just think that there's some things working in our favor. We'll see how she ends up being, but so far she's been pretty good. And like you said, she's starting to show more personality and facial features, which is kind of cool. Yesterday was the first time I was looking at her and I kind of was like, you do look a little bit like your sister. Like she had a little bit of Peyton's features, which I haven't thought that to this point. So that was kind of,
you look funny. At her way more than I have, but I see it.
Yeah. And I'm not as good at that as a lot of people do. A lot of people always say Peyton looks like, Macy or myself. And I don't really see that as much, but yeah, I mean, she's definitely cute, which is good. So, she's been good. I can't complain about the baby. There's times where I would want to, but overall, looking, from a view above it, she's definitely been a pretty good baby thus far.
So that means that you guys are sleeping great, so I can complain about Bryce's sleeping and not feel bad.
I don't know if I say great, but it's
I will.
better than it was Peyton's first few months, without a doubt. But Brandon, you told me you had a piece of baby gear. What piece of baby gear do you guys go over? Because I got one that I think you're also going to talk about.
It's probably the same thing, Nick, because this
Probably
is exactly what we brought it over.
Yep.
Kelsey had a great find on Amazon, and it was less than $15. Though I can't find them for less than $15 right now, but maybe I'm not looking hard enough. Or maybe she told me she paid $15 and she really paid
nice
that price. I'm sure I'm gonna get a text about this tomorrow. But it's the Swim Bobo Toddler Pool Float Inflatable Car Baby Swimmer. That's a lot of words. But long story long, it's a inflatable pool toy that's a car. And as soon as we brought this thing in, there's a bunch of like older kids in the pool as well. And by older, I'm talking like 4 or 5 in that range. And like they immediately started yelling, "Can I play with the car? Can I play with the car?" And it's a single seat car, pool floaty, but it also has a shade over top of it. So it's helpful. I mean, yesterday it was close to 90 degrees where we're at in Michigan, and the sun was definitely out. But it's just a car. Their feet basically fit right through, so their feet are dangling in the water. They're able to kick, but they're just hanging out, and it was a hit. I know Bryce was a little iffy on it, and I think Peyton loved it. But I'll let you talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. So that
I should have just gave it to you because I left it over there.
Well, it's funny because I legitimately didn't know it was yours. I thought it was the people's house we were at. I legitimately thought it was theirs. But anyways, it's funny you said that because like we got there and Peyton was kind of like Bryce, which she's been in the pool in the water before, but like she's like always hit and miss with it. And she like was in the mood where she's like, I don't want to be in the water. And I'm like, great. It's hot out. She's being iffy. She's not going to want to go in the water. I'm going to be chasing her around all, not hot. So I'm like, this is stink. So I'm trying to get her playing with toys, and she's sitting outside. She's actually being good, and I'm playing with like the water guns and stuff. And then that little thing went by, and Bryce had been in it, and it was empty. And I'm like, I'm gonna try to put her in it. And I'm not gonna lie to you, Brandon, I fully expected her to start screaming. I was like, I'm 99% sure she's gonna hate this, but whatever. I put her in it, and she freaking loved the thing. And it was the best thing ever for me because then she's floating around. She was happy. Dad could be in the pool. I could have a beer in my hand. It was great. I loved this thing to death, and she loved it. Now, the negative of this is she loved it. We ended up getting out of the pool to eat. And then when we got done eating, she wanted to go back into it, saw it, and another kid was in it. And that's what started her temper tantrums. When I said it was a toy, it was actually that thing. Because one of the other boys was in it, and she wanted it. And I'm not going to kick the kid out of the... And I thought it was his, too. The kid that was in it, I thought it was legitimately his.
I think he thought it was his, too.
Well, it was just funny, though, because she was so mad. And that's how she gets. She's the same way... I don't know if you remember when you guys came to her house with the swing. And then Bryce was swinging also. Yeah. She's like, I want the swing. Like, which one? I want to break that habit to begin with. But 2... It was just like, so it was good. It was so good that she got so mad when she couldn't go in it. But that thing, I couldn't speak highly enough for it because not only is it good because it keeps them shaded, they're in the water, but it lets you kind of do what you want because, yes, you still got to watch them and you still got to be there, but you don't have to be like holding them or worried about them doing anything too stupid because it would take a lot of talent probably to get out of that thing. So,
well, part of the reason we left it over there is because Bryce gets in the pool. That was his first time, and we're not going to the pool other than swim lessons, and like you got a whole lake that you can access.
Yeah.
So you might have to jack that from our mutual friend because I'm sure.
Well, yeah, I might because otherwise I was going to tell you Prime Day's coming up, which it's Prime Day, but I'm probably getting one of those because it was so great. I like you said, even the lake at my dad's house, it was. I would put her in that because sometimes holding the kid while you're in there, it's a lot. So, no, that was my piece of gear.
I just can't guarantee that he did.
He seemed to like. Didn't seem too upset with it. Those ring things that you're playing with
towards the end, he did like those. But by the time he was playing with those, he was standing up on his own. He was great standing up on his own. It was when we were trying to hold him in the pool. He doesn't, in general, like to be confined in anything.
Well, kids are
I
so
think he
hit
felt
and
like he
miss,
couldn't move.
too.
Yeah.
That's like Peyton all of a sudden then found a plastic cup that she thought was the greatest thing in the world for about 20 minutes. So, apparently that's my piece of baby gear. Plastic Solo cup.
Plastic cup. Mine would be Gatorade bottles.
She thought that was great for a minute. But
Senchia bottles.
yeah, and we kind of started talking about it, Brandon, but our topic today, we thought it was a good time to talk about kind of the water and kids and stuff related to it. So, when's a good time to start swimming lessons, or how do you teach your kids to swim? What are some safety tips? Just different things related to the water and kids. And I guess I'll start by saying that it is a good thing to get your kid comfortable with the water at a young age, because it's actually pretty common for people, not just kids, but adults, to be scared of the water. And a lot of that starts at a young age, or because they didn't have a lot of familiarity with the water at a young age. So that's one of the reasons to get the kids comfortable. And you might be someone that's like, I don't really like the water, but that's more reason probably to get your kids involved with it, so that they don't grow up fearing the water too. So I know we started doing swim lessons when Peyton was, I want to say 6 months old, or she definitely wasn't one yet. I will say that if you read according to the American Pediatric Society, or the APA, whatever it is, they say, I think 1 year is when they recommend you take swim lessons. But if you're taking swim lessons, I've read other things that say anywhere from 4 months on. It really just depends on how early you want them to get comfortable with the water. I don't know if you read anything on when to start, Brandon.
Yeah, everything, it lines up exactly what you're saying. It generally says starting off at a year, but it's not frowned upon to go sooner than that. I mean, a lot of these actual places like Aquatots will advertise for less than year-old babies as well.
Yeah,
and that was a big thing for us, was from a safety perspective. I mean, growing up, my mom made sure that we were in swim lessons, because you never quite know when your kid's going to be around water. I mean, you should generally at the age that Bryce and Peyton are at. But we used to go on cruises. We had friends with pools. And as they get older, you want them to be comfortable with the water and able to actually swim. Because the last thing you want is a kid to fall in a pool and them not know what to do in that situation. So I couldn't stress that enough. Safety is incredibly important, and part of the reason that we're starting Bryce off next week. Actually, he's going 2-a-days for a month and a half, or two a weeks. Excuse me.
And swim lessons, like you said, there's lots of companies that will do it, like Aquatots and stuff like that. But there's also a lot of times your local community centers, YMCAs, things like that will have classes, and they're usually not very expensive, and they have them pretty much year round. So it doesn't matter when your kid was born. And what's nice is a lot of them will say it's not like you take a class and then you got to wait to take an older class. You can basically repeat the class until they're ready for a more advanced class and stuff like that too. So it just depends on what you're trying to get your kid comfortable with. When they're super young, mostly it's getting them acclimated with the water, not being freaked out about it. Sometimes they'll have water near their face and stuff like that, so they don't freak out when water's on their head or on their face. You can even do some of this stuff with just baths, getting kids comfortable playing in the bath and being in bath water that's maybe, to the waist level instead of just, their feet or whatever. So there's lots of things you can do there, but safety is definitely key. Another thing when it comes to water, talking about safety, Brandon, is actually there's different levels to life vests. I don't know if you read anything about that, but that's something I didn't know until we had a kid, that there's technically different ratings on life vests. There's type 1, 2, 3. I think it all goes all the way to 5, but most life vests are level 3. That's what you would typically assume that someone's going to be wearing. Me or you would probably wear if we were on a boat and we were putting on a life preserver, a life vest. It would be what they call a type 3. But usually smaller children or children that don't know how to swim, they want in a type 2. So what that's going to do is going to keep them safe, and it's going to help them float for what could be a longer period of time in a safe manner, as opposed to where level 3 is going to I don't want to say it's an aid, but it's not meant to keep you upright for long periods of time if you were in duress.
Yeah, and you mentioned life vest, something that goes along with that um, a lot of people will utilize are like the water wings or the floaties, and it might surprise you to find out that those are actually not recommended for small kids or toddlers who don't know how to swim already or haven't been acclimated with the water. And part of the reason is because Jerry mentioned with those level 2 life vests, it helps them float. But part of the benefit there is it keeps their posture where it needs to be and can keep their head above water. Unfortunately the wings and right now I'm quoting goldfishswimschool.com, but there's a bunch of different articles you can check out because you always want to do your research yourself. But the reason that they are not something that's looked at as safe for kids is because they teach poor posture and incorrect swimming habits, and then it causes them to basically align the kids vertical in the pool, which can be a potential drowning position. So you want to be very careful. It's one of those things that they're super popular. I know growing up, like we were thrown in those things all. I hated them actually as a kid. Like I did not like swimming with those. Like in my mind, I knew what I was doing.
I don't remember ever having those. It was one of
those things that were, dude. They should put me in those things every time, and I knew how to swim. And it was just getting away, and I felt like it made it more difficult to swim actually. I'm remembering as like a.
Well, the more, and you're saying the water wings and stuff, Brandon, but the more popular one now, and the thing that people typically think of are what they call puddle jumpers, and that's basically where it's like it goes around your waist and it has like the wings attached to it too, and
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's called like a puddle jumper, and the problem is that's actually, because I read a lot of the same stuff as you, that is, for all the reasons you're stating, is actually not recommended by a lot of people because it keeps them vertical, which is not a swimming position. It can be a drowning position. It can deter them from learning how to swim if they don't know how. And it's funny because you'll see that those company advertise that they're Coast Guard approved, but it's kind of like facetious a little bit because that doesn't mean that they recommend them as like a life vest. It just means that they're like approved for what they're supposed to be used for, which is like in shallow areas and stuff like that. So, and again, I'm not trying to say don't use them. It's just maybe don't use them as like a life vest. But like if your kid's in like a pool, like a shallower pool, and it just makes them feel more secure or makes you feel a little bit better about it, there's probably nothing wrong with it. But if you're always having them in it and they don't know how to swim yet, it can deter them a little bit. And then again, in lakes or bigger bodies of water, it's not as recommended as like the type 2 life vests. So just be careful with those. And they're very, very popular. At the party we were at, multiple kids had those on, just so you know. It's not like you don't see them. It's just there's some parents that are very against them, and there's some people that like are very for them. Just do your research and make sure you understand the pros and the cons of it.
Yeah, and we've been mentioning safety a lot. I'm going to wrap up the safety portion, and we can get into some actual tips for swimming and teaching your kids to swim. But things to always remember, Jerry hit on it with his approach yesterday at the pool with Peyton, but supervise your kids at all time. It only takes a split second for something that you don't want to have happen, actually happen. So someone, an adult, needs to have their eye on your kid at all times, and that's not really, when you're around a pool, that's not something you can really take a break on. And that's typically regardless of their abilities. They're still kids at the end of the day, especially if other kids are around. You don't necessarily know what could be going on. Make sure there's no hazards in the swimming areas. And then when your kid's old enough to understand it, teach your child about water safety rules. Like I remember growing up, I can still hear, like I used to take swimming lessons at the local high school, and I mean you're talking like every summer for like 6 years, and I remember those shrieking whistles that they would have, and the number one rule was no running on because they tell you horror stories about people like slipping and falling and stuff like that. I think they were just trying to scare us, but that it is important because it's a wet area, and you don't necessarily want to fall in if you're not ready or intending to. So those are all different ways that you can make sure that your child has a safe and fun time at the pool or at the lake.
Yeah, last one I also mentioned because it's kind of related. but depends on where you're at, is if you're going to the pool and you're outside, sunscreen. Yeah, kids hate it, and I hate putting it on Peyton, but you got to lather them up, and you got to do it frequently. You got to have the high SPF. Just put it on them. They're going to hate it. Try to go quick. Maybe tag team it with mom, but put it on the sunscreen. And just get them in that hat. That's one thing I do remember as being a kid, Brandon. You talk about stories. I remember going to the beach and we'd be get ready. You're so geeked up as a kid to go in the water, build sandcastles, and my mom would be like, everyone needs sunscreen on first. And this was before they had spray sunscreen. So you're just for 10, 15 lotion. Minutes, yes. And then you can't see because you don't have a mirror. And you're like asking your brother, does it look good? And you got it all over your face. He's like, yeah. You're doing the same thing to him. Thinking it's funny, like he's not doing the same thing to you because he's got it all over his face still. So, but yeah, sunscreen. Just don't forget the sunscreen. But enough about safety, Brandon. On to the fun stuff. Tips and tricks or ways to make swimming more fun. Why don't you kick it off?
So some general tips, if you can help it, especially, this is something that I think got to Bryce a little bit yesterday. When you're first starting, if you are in control of the temperature of the water, warmer water probably will help you out a little bit for the temperament, pun intended, of your kid. Using toys and games to make the experience fun. Singing songs, creating activities, and then making sure that if this is something that you're doing like week in, week out, notate where your kid is, and as they're basically doing a better job, positive reinforcement is really cool. So things that you can do, and Jerry's going to hit on some of this as well. If you're actually at the pool, if you can teach them to kick, they can hold on to like the pool side, kick their legs. You as the parent can kick the legs for them. That's something Kelsey and I were working with Bryce on yesterday. And swimming on their back. So holding their back and the back of their head to the water, and teaching them how to float on their back are both things that are really important when you are teaching them how to swim. And that's a good life preservation skill as well, for the kids.
Yeah, for sure. And like we mentioned, it depends on the age. When kids are like kind of like Peyton and Bryce's age, and they're 2 years or younger, mostly you're just trying to get them acclimated with the water. Are they comfortable being in the water? They're not freaking out. They like to be in the water, right? When they get a little bit older, that's when you start wanting to teach them, okay, how to stay afloat. That's the biggest thing, right? Can you stay afloat? Some ways to help do that is like I said, especially if you have two people, can you kind of have them kick from one to the other person? And you almost do it at first where you're like guiding them with your hands, and then when they get comfortable, maybe you stand a couple feet away from your wife and then they kick to you, and then you give them something when they come to you. You give them like a cookie, or you give them, like a toy that you have or whatever, and you just get them comfortable going back and forth. And then you start building up like the actual skills as they get a little bit older, proper ways to swim above water and underwater, some fun ways to get them involved, or if you have like those dive toys, or like floating toys, can you go get this toy, or can you go down and get this toy as they get comfortable going under the water? Getting them goggles, that's another fun thing. Like kids like goggles, and now they can see with their eyes open. It makes them feel more comfortable. That's kind of fun too. Right, goggles are so cool as a kid. I don't know why.
Every year I got new goggles, and I pick them out.
So you make it fun. You have some games and some toys, but you want to make sure they're comfortable. That's a big thing too. You don't want them feeling like they're fearing it. So if they feel like they're in control, and that's because you've got them acclimated to the water. You don't feel like you're putting them in a scary situation. Kids tend to do better. They tend to learn fast, and it's kind of like riding a bike. Once they kind of figure it out and that they're okay, they'll start pushing their own limits as they get older and older. So that's definitely important. Another thing to remember, and this is actually a lesson that I saw firsthand just this last weekend. My one nephew, he did not like the water. So when we go to my dad's house on the lake, he would never go in the water. His siblings would, all the other kids would. He didn't like it, did not like the water. And then this last time, he was out there like a madman in the water. And I go to my sister, I'm like, man, when did Jamie start liking those? She's like, he loves it now. So, I mean, even if your kid's like against it, don't give up on it. Don't necessarily overforce it, but just, keep introducing them to the water. And then some kids go at their own speed. So he went from literally last year hating it to now he loves it and was he was doing great in the water too. Like, it wasn't like he was just in it; he was thriving in it. And so that's the other thing. Don't get discouraged. Maybe if you're like, why does my kid hate the water? They might just be at a stage where they don't like it, but if you keep introducing it to them, they'll hopefully eventually like it. So I know for him it did.
The big thing there is not forcing it, and we can kind of apply that to a lot of different things as we are going on this journey of fatherhood, as you like to say at the beginning of every episode. But you can really benefit your child in situations like this by exposing them to things and showing them things, but you can also be harmful and turn it into a negative experience where they are afraid of the water if you push that limit. And I mean, I learned that lesson to a lesser degree earlier when I was trying to get Bryce to go down a slide at a kid's birthday party, and it took some months for him to get over that. And to me, it was directly related to that experience. So forcing it is not always what needs to happen. But you gotta read your kid, as Jerry said.
Yeah, and again, pool time, water time, make it fun. Goggles, special towel, special toys, special swim trunks, shoes. Kids got a lot of things to be excited about other than just the swimming part. So if you make it a fun experience and stuff too, some of that will get them excited about it. If you've got a new toy that you can only use in the water or in the pool, kids like that, right? So those are different things you can do as well too to kind of, I don't want to say bribe them, but like intrigue them into wanting to swim or be around the water more often. And then like we said too, Brandon, like you can't do it once a year and expect the kid to be comfortable with it. You're probably going to have to take some swim lessons or go in safe environments decently frequently if you're going to want them to be comfortable with the water. And then once they pretty much become comfortable with it, you tends to stick, right? It's not like you go swimming one year and the next year you're like, I don't remember how to swim. Kids are usually pretty good. So the water can be fun. I loved the water as a kid. I would spend hours and hours and hours in either pools or lakes and stuff. So definitely can be fun, but it also is one of the more dangerous things with kids is pools and bodies of water. So you got to be on your game as a parent. You got to have strict rules. And like you mentioned earlier, Brandon, when they get old enough, you got to make sure they understand the rules, not running or always having a buddy with you or don't go in a deep end, whatever it is, you got to make sure they understand what is acceptable if you're not going to be watching them 24/7. And until they understand those rules, you pretty much do need to be watching them 24/7 around water.
Number one thing I can't wait for Bryce to love. I only had one rule with my parents. I say this like they actually listen to me. But if we went on vacation somewhere, I wanted to be able to go somewhere in the area that had a wave pool. And I would spend all day at the wave pool and try to get to the end. And so I want to take Bryce to the wave pool and see if we can have a little fun. Wave pools sometimes gross people out too, so I don't know.
It was funny you said that because I was just
looking
thinking,
at me like you're disgusted.
No, I loved wave pools growing up, but it's funny you said that because like growing up, I thought wave pools were the coolest thing in the world, and then I was just thinking now, I'm like, would I like him now? Like in my head, I was like, I loved him growing up, and now I'm like, well, that's the other thing too. They get old, yeah. But they were fun as kids. Yeah. I did love them as kids. Water parks in general are just great as a kid. So,
wave pools are like those oceanside beaches, like Myrtle Beach, Daytona Beach, where you're getting those natural waves. They're fun.
I like it, Brandon. Well, Brandon, before we conclude today, I have a dad joke, and you said if it was a good one, you might hit me with another one. So are you ready for my dad joke?
I'm not hitting you with another one. You good. You better just win.
Well, I'm going to tell you kind of how it originated. So this last week, we had a couple of our friends over, two guys that have been on the podcast before, Ryan and Jason. Both of them on the podcast before. They came over with their families, and I have a dad joke book on my table. And I haven't opened it, this particular one. I was a gift when Avery was born, and I haven't really opened it. And I think it was Jason read one, and I was like, that's funny. So I'm like, I'm going to use that this week. So it's the joke he read. It was just the only one he read out of the whole book, but I actually thought it was funny. So that's where this joke comes from. So it's kind of from Jason, but mostly from my book sitting on my desk right now. Are you ready for
Jason,
it, Brandon?
He kind of gave you credit, and he kind of didn't.
Kind of, exactly. You ready?
Yeah, I'm waiting with bated breath.
Brandon, what do you call it when Batman skips church?
When Batman skips, I feel like I should be able to get this, but what is it?
Christian Bale.
I think I've run across that before and laughed. That's a good joke.
It's a good joke.
That is a top tier joke.
He said it, and I thought it was funny. I was like, that's actually kind of funny.
Yeah.
It's a good play on words and clever. Plus, Christian Bale's the best Batman, so it's a good joke. Solid joke.
Christian Bale is the best Batman. I will agree with you on that.
Wow, did we disagree on something? That's rare.
I don't know. Robert Pattinson really came in strong.
I haven't even seen
Batman.
that one. I haven't even seen that one, so I can't even.
It's
comment.
actually pretty good. It is actually pretty good.
I like it. Well, Brandon, for everyone listening, if you haven't listened to us before, please continue to listen to us. Tell your friends about us. Like our pages on social media, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, all that good stuff. Write us a review. Ask any questions you might have. Recommend products, too. We read about different pieces of baby gear people have sent us before, too. So please, please, please make sure you are doing that. We love hearing from each and every single one of you. But until next time, I'm Jerry, joined here as always by Brandon, and you've been listening to Dad Jokes.